This is always kind of like that awkward silent moment when you just are watching people enter, but you haven't quite started yet.
Well, and I see that Kohler is with us tonight. Does anybody else see any of our other board members?
Just seeing Kohler there right now. But they're rolling in.
No, I see some names I recognize, but I think Kohler is the only board member so far. Great. It looks like we just have one on a phone and the rest are joining elsewise, so that's good. All right, Holly, it looks like the attendee list is kind of holding steady. If you want to go ahead and kick us off.
Okay, great, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the La Plata Electric Association District 1 Virtual Town Hall. My name is Holly Leanne Metzler and I will be your moderator for this evening's event. I would like to start by first acknowledging the moisture that we are receiving, not only for us ourselves, but also for our sister electric cooperatives and communities up north of us here in Colorado, who have been impacted by what have now become the largest wildfires in Colorado history. Photos of the snow up in the Estes Park area have given us hope that these fires will be controlled very soon. And from the electric cooperative perspective, it's time to get the grid back up and running where the needs are still existing. We are very grateful for all of you who have taken the time out of your evening to join us here tonight. One of my favorite aspects of our monthly board meetings is the first hour of the meeting when our member owners are given the chance to ask questions and make comments to the board of directors. The monthly board meetings are on the third Wednesday of the month, open to the public, currently completely virtual, and you can find the information to participate on the LPEA website. So I would like to give a brief overview of the agenda for this evening and a few pointers on how to participate in the discussion tonight via Zoom for those of us who have never used this format before. We're going to start with some introductions of all the directors and staff that are present. And after that, we will have a presentation by Vice President of Grid Solutions, Dan Harms. And this is going to be about the work the La Plata Electric Association and the staff have been engaging in a three-pronged strategy to determine our best route forward to meet the growing demand for more local control and economic development, and to meet LPEA's mission to provide safe, reliable, cost-effective electricity while still being environmentally responsible. So after the power supply presentation, there will be two separate question and answer sessions. The first question and answer session will be tied specifically to the power supply presentation. And the second question and answer session will be open to all general questions and comments. For those of you who are not familiar with the Zoom meeting format, at the bottom of your computer screen, you will notice an icon that has a Q&A. This is where you can type all of your questions to be answered, or if you prefer, in the participants panel, there's a raise hand selection that you can have your questions answered live. If you have called in on your telephone, you can raise your hand to ask a question by pressing *9. We will start answering questions after the power supply presentation is complete, and we ask that everyone limits their question and comments to 3 minutes so that we are mindful of everybody's time and everyone has a chance to participate. So without further ado, let's roll into the introductions. La Plata Electric Association is comprised of 4 districts. Each district is elected 3 representatives for a total of 12 directors on the board. It is important to note that each director brings the diversity of their knowledge and experience to the table. And while each of us has our own opinion on an issue, Once the board makes a majority decision vote, that vote becomes the voice of the board. So before I get into letting the District 1 Board of Directors introduce themselves this evening, I would like to acknowledge the Director 2, Kohler McInnes, who has joined with us this evening. I really appreciate Kohler. He has been a great mentor to me in my learning process on directors, and he shows up. He shows up to the committee meetings. He shows up to the employee appreciations. He comes to these things, and I really appreciate that, Kohler. Thank you. So now I would like to turn this over to District Director 1, Robert Lynch, to be able to introduce himself to our members tonight.
Thank you, Holly. Bob Lynch. I'm been on the LPEA board for, this is my 7th year, a 3rd term. So it's been my pleasure to learn a lot and participate in all the important things that are going on with our organization. I'm a Pagosa native. I left here and had a business career as a management consultant for a number of years, and then returned about 20 years ago and started a cattle ranch. And then somewhere along the way got interested in the evolving world of electricity, and particularly renewables, and how they might be integrated into a seamless grid. And so I appreciate the chance to be here, and I want to thank everybody that took some time this evening to tune in. We've made a lot of progress over the last couple of years trying to be much more transparent as an organization and much better at reaching out and listening. I think that's the most important thing, listening to what members have to say. You know, we bring our point of view, but we represent the membership, and that's who's here tonight. And we're looking forward to hearing your thoughts and trying to answer your questions. So thank you. And thank you, Holly.
Great, thank you, Director Lynch. All right, so let's hear from District 1 Director Kirsten Skehan.
Great. Hey, thanks, Holly. Since you checked the attendee list, we do have John Lee as another board director who's on. He's one of our newest ones that got elected in April. So he's attending too, and I certainly appreciate that. Thank you so much. So I've had the pleasure and the privilege of serving District 1 for the last 2 years and have absolutely loved it. During my first 2 years, I was elected by the LPEA board to also be on the Tri-State board. So I spent 2 years on that Tri-State board. Just recently stepped down from there, and now I'm working on the broadband committee. So any questions on either of those topics, I might be able to help out. And if I'm not able to help out, I've got some great people who can help me. So that's it for me. Looking forward to some questions and answers. And for those of you who haven't grabbed me in the grocery store lately, feel free to keep on grabbing me. That's normally where I get stopped the most, it seems. Thanks a lot.
Great, thank you, Director Skehan. I would also add that Director Skehan is also serving right now on the Roundup board. That is a fantastic organization. My name is Holly Leanne Metzler, and I was elected from District 1 to the La Plata Electric Board of Directors in May of 2019. It has been a true honor and privilege to serve my communities in this position, and I really do appreciate the importance of the work that I am performing for our member owners. The first year I was on this board of directors, I also served on the Roundup board. That is a great organization. In May of 2020, I started a new position as the LPEA representative to Western United Electric Cooperative. It's a cooperative that LPEA belongs to, and the entity that sells us most of our materials for construction and maintenance of our electric system. I am also recently appointed to the Colorado Rural Electric Association Board of Directors as LPEA's representative. This is an organization that works on cooperative issues in the state, things specifically tied to safety, education, director training, as well as working on legislative issues at both the state and federal level. Most recently, I was also appointed to the Broadband Committee with Kirsten, and that is an exciting opportunity. We are exploring whether LPEA has a role in regard to assisting our communities to access broadband. And when I am not serving the member owners of LPEA, I am a co-owner of 2 small businesses here in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, and I am the mother of 4 sons 3 of whom are school-aged right now. So it is an honor to work with the La Plata Electric staff. They are a phenomenal group of professionals, and I would like to take some time to introduce the senior staff who are with us this evening. Okay, Charlie Brown, let's start with the Great Pumpkin, CEO Jessica Matlock.
Thank you. Well, I don't have 4 boys, but I do have 3 school-age kids that keep me busy as well. And in fact, I'm hoping they're doing homework right now. Thank you, Holly. Appreciate it. Yes, so I've been the CEO for 1 year and 4 months, and it's been quite the experience of going through COVID. But I would have to agree that having such a wonderful, capable board and staff has really helped us get through this trying time. And then the fires on top of that. I don't know, Jerry will probably have to tell us how many fires we've been fixing afterwards with our poles being burnt down, but we're thankful for the snow as well. So thank you for joining us.
Got to take myself off mute. So there are a couple of things that I would really like to mention to the membership because I'm truly excited about them, and you might not have an opportunity to learn about them otherwise. So the hiring process for the CEO was well underway when I joined the board in May of 2019. CEO Matlock started in July of last year, and in my personal opinion, she has proven herself to be an incredible bottom-up relationship building leader who has made the effort to meet every single one of our 100+ employees working at LPEA. So working with the rest of this leadership team that you will meet tonight, they engaged with employees from across the entire company to help code of excellence for which the staff of LPEA to abide by. And this was in collaboration with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. So a video has just been released on this work, and it shows how effective it has been to improve morale, safety, and employee and management relationships, among other things within LPEA. And I am proud to say that recently in a class I was taking, the LPEA Code of Excellence is being held as a beacon for which other cooperatives to model after. So if you get a chance, please take a look at that video. I find it really super exciting. So the next thing I would like to mention is that CEO Matlock was just named the very first CEO of the newly forming Women in Power group at the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association. In the first week of the initial invitation going out, more than 1,000 ladies working in cooperative power have asked to join that membership. And lastly, and probably most importantly, since coming onto the board at the company, it has been a stated goal of CEO Matlock to break down the barriers of our budgeting process so that each member of the senior leadership team had more knowledge and accountability in their departments. This was hampered by the fact that the CFO left in June of 2019, just before CEO Matlock started. And it took nearly 7 months before we were blessed with our new incoming Vice President of Finance in January of 2020. When COVID hit, the work and dedication of CEO Matlock in coordination with our entire leadership team, they were able to find nearly $2 million in budget cuts that could be made in the interim to help shore up the strength and vitality of the corporation as COVID hit. And it also helped us, allowed us to be able to help our member owners in the face of this pandemic. So I am sincerely grateful for all those things. With La Plata Electric Association leadership team, there has been tremendous progress made in our budgeting process. And let me tell you, in the electric industry, it is no small feat of financial, engineering, and leadership capacity to ensure a safe and reliable electric system. So with that, I would like to introduce LPEA Vice President of Finance, Carl Ramsey, who has done fantastic work presenting our financial materials and budgets.
Thank you, Holly. That was lovely. Appreciate it very much. My name is Carl Ramsey, Vice President of Finance. As Holly said, I've only been with the co-op since January. I previously worked for another electric co-op up in Eastern Oregon. And for one thing, it's a lot more beautiful in Durango than it is in Eastern Oregon. It's a wonderful place to live, wonderful people. People are so friendly here, and it's a wonderful place to work. I'm proud to work for LPEA. Wonderful leadership team, wonderful staff, and I enjoy working with the directors. I think we've got some great things going, and I hope to continue them. Thank you, Holly.
We're grateful to have you, sir. Okay, so shining as our Vice President of People and Culture, Ms. Nadine Ontiveros. Can you hear me, Nadine?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Very nice to meet you. So grateful to work with a great team of employees and to serve some great members. So thanks for having us.
Thank you, Nadine. So implementing this evening's event, and it was started by Vice President of Communications, Ms. Hillary Knox.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hillary Knox. I'm VP of Communications. I recognize some of the names of our attendees from people that I have communicated back and forth with. I apologize for all of the emails that I send you all, but hopefully they are informative and you find them useful. Yeah, looking forward to hearing your questions and comments later.
Great, thank you, Hillary. So if there's something strange on my work iPad, who am I going to call? Drew Timmerman, Vice President of Information Technology.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Drew Timmerman, Vice President of Information Technology. And so, yeah, if anything goes haywire this evening, then you can throw stones at me. So hope everybody's doing well this evening, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Drew. He has rescued me so many times, it's ridiculous. Appreciate your work. So our next senior staff member has the vital role of directing our on-the-ground operations, and that's Vice President of Operations, Jerry Sutherland.
Thank you, Holly. Good evening, everybody. I'm Jerry Sutherland, and I've been at La Plata Electric now going on 21 years, and I'm grateful for the opportunities that have been given to me. We do our best to keep your lights on.
Thank you, Jerry. You do a great job. I appreciate it. Pagosa Springs also has the benefit of our very own district manager, Mr. Garrett Hammer.
Thanks, Holly. I'm Garrett Hammer, district manager here in Pagosa. I've been in this role since the 1st of January. I've been with La Plata Electric for 9 years, and proud to be part of this group. Thank you for having me.
We're grateful to have you, Garrett. And last but not least, I have seen with mine own eyes some of the most stupendous out-of-the-box thinking from our very own Vice President of Grid Solutions, Dan Harms.
Hi, thank you, Holly, and good evening, Pagosa Springs. I'm glad to be here. My name is Dan Harms, Vice President of Grid Solutions. Grid Solutions is a team of people that makes our grid run as efficiently as possible using engineering and technology and all the latest widgets that we can play with. It's a fun role to have. And so also get to do power supply and rate design as well.
And I'd have to say one of LPEA's secret weapons, Dan. All right. Directors Lynch and Skihan, do you have anything else you would like to add before we dive into the power supply presentation?
Nope, looking forward to the information
Yep.
and the
Nothing for me.
questions.
Okay, great. So now we will begin the power supply presentation by Vice President of Grid Solutions, Dan Harms. Take it away, Dan.
All right, I got it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So bear with me just a second as I get things set up and rolling here. Play over here. And then swap that around. So we should all be seeing our title slide now, hopefully. Yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. Hopefully we can answer some questions for you. One topic we thought everybody would have some interest in would be our future of power supply. So I've got a short presentation here, maybe 15 minutes long, where we'll go over some key elements of our power supply future and hopefully answer some of those questions you might have with the presentation. But certainly if you have additional questions after that, feel free, as Holly mentioned, to either raise your hand or submit something in the Q&A section, and we'll cover as many of those as we possibly can this evening. So let's go ahead and get started then. So the first question is, why does it matter where we source our power? Why is this so important? And I've got 3 reasons here that we'll be going over with you tonight. And the first is, as shown in this pie chart here, the cost that power supply has on our power bill, and therefore on the power bill that you pay as consumers at La Plata Electric and members. As you can see, our cost of power is nearly 64% of our total operating expense, and therefore that percentage of your power bill that you pay. And so obviously power supply is a big portion and something that we definitely want to pay attention to, costing La Plata Electric nearly $72 million every year. Then we take that power and we deliver that to you, and the remainder costs that are shown in the pie chart all involve getting that power to your front door so you can use it at your house. So obviously any difference that we can make in our power supply is going to make a big difference in the power bill that you have. The other reason is local control. Co-ops have a history of wanting and having that local control at their fingertips. Now, historically, power supply has often been handled through large centralized generating stations because that was where the best bang for the buck was. Times have changed now. And there's certainly new technologies that are available out there that allow us to procure our power and have things locally at a more affordable price. And so those are the kind of things that we're looking forward to and want to go back to those cooperative roots and having that local control. And as you see in our vision statement here, we definitely highlight the fact of building trustworthy community partnerships as an innovative, forward-thinking industry leader. And that's part of, it's definitely something we want to embrace and join our community and empowering our future. The third reason is sustainability. As many of you are aware, La Plata Electric established a carbon goal, a new goal for La Plata Electric, so that whereby we are trying to reduce our carbon footprint from power supply by 50% from where we were in 2018. And doing all that by the year 2030. And this other part is important, this last part, and it's all while keeping the cost of electricity lower than 70% of the Colorado cooperative peers. And the reason why we chose 70% is because that's where we were standing in 2018. So we want to make this headway towards a more sustainable future and still maintaining the competitive nature of our rates while we stay less expensive than 70% of the other Colorado cooperatives. So here's a snapshot of what our power supply looks like today and what we hope to have in 5 years from now. Today, Tri-State Generation and Transmission supplies 95% of our power supply. We do have the latitude to generate 5% on our own, which is shown by this piece of pie over here on the side. But the other 95% comes from Tri-State. And this is what their generation mix is currently comprised of. It's a mix of natural gas, renewables, and a large portion of it today is coal. And so where we want to go in the future is to have a larger portion, especially the LPEA portion that's now 5%, expanding that to 18% possibly. And this will be a 5-year operating goal. It's just something on our way towards reducing those emissions towards that 2030 level, a stair step on the way there. And while we do this, hopefully Tri-State is also doing their portion to reduce their emissions as well. And part of their responsible energy plan, they do have plans to reduce their amount of coal generation and increase their renewables. So hopefully the picture and outlook looks even better than what is shown here after 5 years. So often get asked the question, but are renewables more expensive? Why are you looking at these? Because they cost so much. Well, that may have been the story 10 years ago. But today things have changed tremendously. 10 years ago, renewables were significantly more than traditional forms of generation when you just look at the cost to generate that power. And in about 2013, something crossed over here in the middle, and renewables started to become cheaper than traditional forms of generation, especially the coal generation that is so predominant across the United States. And this pricing chart here was provided by a third-party entity that creates reports every year showing levelized cost of energy. And that's just a fancy way of saying everything's included. It's not just the cost to install the power plant, but also the cost to fuel the power plant. Of course, with renewables, that fuel is free. So really what you're looking at here when you're talking renewables is that cost of the plant that you install over the years. And so this was just a way to represent annualized costs. And as you can see, that whereas renewables were costing $359 a megawatt hour, now let me back up a little bit and talk about some of the numbers that are here. When we say $359 a megawatt hour, that's the same as 35.9 cents a kilowatt hour, which might be a term you're more accustomed with on seeing on your power bill. And right now you're paying 12.5 cents a kilowatt hour. And so obviously 35.9 cents is pretty high. That was what it was 10 years ago. Today it's down to $40 a megawatt hour, or 4 cents a kilowatt hour. Now, of course, we still have to transmit, deliver that power to you. So that's not the all-in cost of getting power to your door. But the cost to generate that power is $40 a megawatt hour, or 4 cents a kilowatt hour. When compared to coal today, which has had a increased price pressure, it makes renewables that clear choice. It's even has become increasingly competitive with natural gas generation to where it's below natural gas as well. So let's talk a little bit about what our power supply options are. And to understand that, let's first look at where we are today. Well, today, like I mentioned earlier, we do have an all requirements contract with Tri-State G&T. This involves a power contract that goes through the year 2050. It's a long-term contract. That's because Tri-State is installing generation and transmission on our behalf, and they don't charge us for all that up front. Instead, they charge us through the purchase of kilowatt hours. As we buy kilowatt hours, that's what's paying for that plant. Now, although we have this contract through 2050, we would certainly like additional flexibility and the ability to install some of our own generation to augment our load as well. And so that's our goal of flexibility of choice. As I mentioned, Tri-State does provide the 95, and so we do have that 5% of latitude in there right now. And so we'd like to see that increase. We'd like to have the ability to get higher than that. And one way of doing that would be through a partial requirements contract or some other means by which we could add our own renewables. We have a goal to, like we mentioned earlier, within the next 5 years, to add possibly 50 megawatts of solar to increase our local renewable generation by a significant amount here. So today, Tri-State has about a 70% fossil fuel mix and a 30% renewable mix. And what we're aiming for in our future is to reduce that whole footprint there. So if we can cut that 70% of fossil fuel in half, that'll help us achieve that. We'll achieve our goal. And so that is what we're aiming for, instead of more or less flip-flopping this ratio and saying we want something closer to 70% renewables as part of our portfolio here. So how are we going to get there? What is our path going into the future? LPEA for several months, if not well over a year now actually, has been following a three-pronged strategy. And the first prong, well, that's to continue working with Tri-State, trying to expand the flexibility that we have within our current contract and go beyond that 5% renewable limit. The second prong, that's what we are referring to as a partial exit or a partial requirements contract, whereby we're still a member with Tri-State, but we buy out of a certain percentage and we're able to self-supply that percentage ourselves. There's certainly some options there that we're looking at. And then the third option that we're following, the third prong, is a full exit of Tri-State. And in order to be able to properly evaluate that, of course, the first thing we have to know is what is that going to cost us? What will it cost LPEA to exit Tri-State? And so when we posed that question to Tri-State and asked them, we were denied what that number would actually be. And so that's what brought along the cases that we are currently in right now with the Colorado PUC, which is the acronym is CPUC there. and FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And so those are two entities that we are bringing this question to, trying to find out what that fair and equitable number is so that we can make that decision. Is that the right thing for our membership? Like we spoke of earlier, we're talking about really large numbers here. And it definitely is our duty to look into that further and understand what those options are. So as we analyze all these things, there's some major drivers that we're looking at in order to help us make this decision. One, of course, is how much is that power going to be that would replace anything that we buy out of Tri-State with, whether that be all or a portion. Obviously, we have to replace that with something. And so we look at what market pricing is, we look at what different PPAs can provide us, and we look at what we can install renewables ourselves for. All those things can go into as options for replacing that power supply. Then the second thing we're paying close attention to is transmission expense. We have to get the power to La Plata Electric's doorstep somehow. Currently, we use Tri-State and Western Area Power Authority's transmission grid and transmission network to get that power to La Plata Electric. That's very much the same way we'll get power to La Plata Electric in the future. And so we just have to make sure that we still have those doors open and to us, and we can properly evaluate what those costs are going to be if we're on our own. Then the third, and obviously a very important part of the decision, is understanding how much that buy down or buyout is going to cost us. That's why we're talking to the Colorado PUC, and that's why we're talking to FERC, is to understand what that number is going to be. And there's different methodologies that have been proposed on how to calculate that number. We feel that we have a good understanding of what that would be, and so we want to make sure that that there is a fair and equitable number that's determined and given to us there. All right. So what are our next steps going forward? Well, we talked about the Colorado PUC and FERC, and there's a couple of major milestones that are coming up here. On November 5th, the Colorado PUC will be providing a written order will be published on their decisions on how certain things are moving forward there. And on December 9th, at FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, there'll be a settlement conference that'll also help us decide and have a better understanding of what that possible buyout figure might look like. Then those are two items related to a full buyout. We also have some milestones that we're looking towards on a partial buyout as well. There's currently what is being referred to as an open season, where a cooperative such as La Plata Electric can request a certain amount of capacity for flexibility to install their own generation. We are looking closely at that, and there could be action as early as 2021, whereby we could have that flexibility to do something. So we're certainly looking at that and evaluating all those options that are possible out there. And Holly, I do believe that is the end of my presentation there. So if there are any questions out there, I'd be glad to answer those. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, but we can certainly pull up slides if need be at any point.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dan, for that presentation. Very informative. So just as a reminder, you can, oh, we got our first question. All right, so at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a Q&A icon, and that's where you can type in your questions. Also in the participants icon, you will find a raise hand feature if you want to ask your question live. So let me take a look at what. The first question is from Terry House, and she is asking, the PUC issued this 3 days ago. Can you speak to this? And it's talking about the PUC dismisses La Plata Electric United Power exit fee complaints against Tri-State due to lack of jurisdiction. All right, who wants to take that one?
Holly, did you want me to respond?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so great question, Terry. What happened? So we're still waiting for the final order. It comes out on the 5th of November. So all the details will be in that order. So we'll be able to know more. But really what this is it definitely was they decided it was a corporate law issue. And so that goes to Adams County Court. So already United Power, which is another large, it's actually the largest cooperative in Colorado and the largest tri-state member, has been asking for an exit fee as well. And so they decided to take their case to the Colorado PUC and to their own county court. And so the PUC actually is deferring that decision to the Adams County Court. So we'll know more just watching through that process. I hope that answers your question.
Great, thank you, Jessica. We have a Mark Garcia who would like to ask a question live. If you could please buzz him in, Drew.
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for making this happen tonight. It's great to catch up with you in these crazy times. My question on the presentation is, how does LPEA plan to expand to 18% of renewables in the 5-year plan?
Will you take that one, Holly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Mark, currently we're at 5%. To get to 18, obviously we need another 13. That's 50 megawatts of solar. And that is a number that we've been looking at as something that we can definitely integrate into our system. It's not going to be easy, but we can certainly feel that we have the opportunity and the capacity to be able to handle that much. So if we can have 50 megawatts of solar out there, then that'll get us to that 18%.
Can I add a little, Holly?
Yes, Bob, please.
Yeah,
go
so,
ahead.
yeah, Mark, great to hear your voice and see you there tonight. I spent the last year on the contract committee at Tri-State where while on the one hand, we've been trying to get them to tell us what a full buyout number would be. At the same time, we said we've got to work really hard at Tri-State. So we served on the contract committee, and that committee came up with an option for partial buyouts. And that's what Dan's been talking about. And this open season he referred to will happen in January, where we can bid for up to 50% of our power load to be supplied by ourselves as a partial option. So we have made some really significant progress at Tri-State, and we think 50 megawatts might be about as much as we want to bite off initially. So we're still working on those two fronts while we're still trying hard to get a buyout number to see if that might make sense. It's pretty amazing when you think about it that you can't get a buyout number from your person you have a contract with, but we work that issue. And if that has to stay at FERC, then we'll work it through FERC. And in the meantime, we'll probably see how much advantage we can take of these partial options and increase our renewable percent up to that 18% Dan referred to. So thanks, Mark.
Holly, I would like to acknowledge that Mark used to be on our board. He was an LPEA board member. I don't remember back when it was, Mark, but I know you did some time with us. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Kirsten. I appreciate it. For our call-in participants, if you would like to ask a question, I would remind you that you are able to do so by pressing *9 on your keypad. So let's go to our next question typed in by Mr. Alan Powdermaker. His question is, have other electric co-ops left Tri-State and on what terms? I'm guessing this would be another Dan question, please.
Yeah, that's one I can definitely answer. There's been, well, part of that anyway. We've had 2 electric co-ops leave Tri-State. It's been Kit Carson and Delta Montrose. And terms can be, I guess, on what terms, that could be a complicated part. I don't know all the terms exactly. Don't know if we're referring to dollar amounts. You know, everybody's of various sizes, so they have different buyout numbers, but I know Kit Carson, and correct me if I'm wrong, the rest of staff, but they were 37 million for their cash buyout. And does anybody recall what DMEA was off the top of their head?
Around 86 million.
86 million. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Alan. If not, chime in again.
There's actually a second companion one to that. I didn't know if Holly wanted us to. It's just they're very similar.
From Mr. Powdermaker there. Based on our best guess as to what it will take to take over from Tri-State, are there levels of cost that will not cost consumers large increases?
I think the answer to that is absolutely. We wouldn't be looking at this if it's causing large increases to our consumers. So, we are looking at options that lower, put downward rate pressure on people, and so that's really where we're focused there.
Great, thank you, Dan. Mark Garcia has another question, a second question on Mr. Harm's reply. Would the solar be LPEA solar or community solar gardens or other solar options?
Yes, all the above. We certainly want solar to be part of our portfolio that everybody gets to share in the savings on. And we think that community solar gardens are a great way to move forward to allow everybody to participate in a direct ownership of solar as well. So these are all options that are on the table currently.
Okay, great.
Holly?
Yes.
One other thought. So in addition to the 5% that we're able to supply ourselves right now with our tri-state contract, last year tri-state opened up an extra 2% that we can do through community solar, and that won't count against anything that we do if we go with a partial contract. So there's a kind of 7% maneuverability. We filled up our 5%. We're looking at the 2% based upon what happens as things go through with the partial or the full buyout. There is an opportunity, and as I keep mentioning to folks, we have some land over here in Pagosa that would be maybe some good opportunity for one of our next solar gardens.
Great, thank you, Kirsten. Our next question comes from Joe Tedder, and he is asking, last year during the District 1 Town Hall, there was discussion about installation of backup feed lines to the Pagosa area. Is there an update on the status of this work?
Okay, I'll grab that one.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, there is something in our budget as we speak today. In fact, the project's already underway to rebuild the 69 kV line that we do have going into Pagosa to 115 to provide that redundancy that's necessary out there. And so permitting and right-of-way acquisition takes a significant amount of time, but that has been underway for about a year now, and we're going to get that in as soon as we can there. And Kirsten,
Dan, tell folks what it is that we see along 160 when we drive between Pagosa and Durango. What is it that we're seeing there?
Sure. If you look over to the south, that's where you're seeing an LPEA owned line. And that's where it's going to travel most of the ways on that south side of the road. That is the original feed to Pagosa Springs, much older line. And then after that, Tri-State came and put a much larger line in that's largely to the north and back in the Forest Service. And that is now the primary feed for Pagosa Springs and is plenty capable of carrying 100% of the load. Our line is not, the backup line, so to speak, is not capable of carrying 100% of the load during peak times. So that's why we want to have that redundancy in there. And of course, obviously, we're seeing all the impact of wildfires in our area, and a wildfire could take out one of these lines. So we want to make sure we have a second one out there for redundancy purposes as well.
Thank you.
You're muted.
That mute again, thank you. Let's open the floor to any general questions or comments by any member owners. It looks like we might have done a really good job right now because I'm not seeing any more questions right now.
We've got Mark. Mark's got his hand up again.
Oh, great. Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. I had a question about the broadband that was mentioned earlier, the committee that Commissioner Skian mentioned. Can you expand upon that and how it might work into our neighboring communities at this time? Thank you.
Sure, I'd like to take that. May I, Holly?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. So we recently rejuvenated the broadband committee. It started up last year as trying to figure out, do we even want to be a player in this game? And I know it's not a game. For many people, it's a livelihood. It's the way you go to school. It's the way you go to work. It's the future of how you're going to be doing your medicine. So we know that it's a really important thing. What we at LPEA are trying to figure out is, okay, are there enough other players in the game that we don't want to dilute our strength, which is getting electricity to your door? We don't want to dilute that by maybe thinking of other things to do like broadband, or is it hand in hand with that? As long as we're getting electricity to your door, then we use some of those same tools to also get broadband to your door. So that's what we're trying to look at. We owe the board, the full board, a detailed report in April. We're already starting working on that, and that is available for public comment on, if you go to the Broadband Committee sub-page at LPEA, you can start seeing where we're trying to start put together. And we're trying to answer questions like, do we have any business being in this? What are the holes? Who doesn't have the services that are required? Who has what used to be considered broadband, but is now hardly gets you the time of day? So that's what we're trying to work on now. I invite you to take a look at that committee page, and you'll also be able to see when our next meetings are and as we go through this. Any more questions on that, Mark?
Great answer, thank you. And I'm sorry I called you Commissioner Skihan. It's Director Skihan, so sorry about that correction.
I couldn't figure out whether that was a promotion or a demotion. So
take it however you want. You know, it's hard wearing multiple hats, but thank you for that reply. And I would just like to say that I support all of you staff and directors and all the work that you're doing. And in particular with the tri-state negotiations. Keep up the good work, please.
Great, thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for all your years serving and you were in the early stages of pushing us in these directions to look at options. And so that work carries on. And thanks for your service during those years.
ditto.
Great. We have another question from Mr. Alan Powdermaker. And he is asking, you mentioned $86 million for another buyout that was related to DMEA. That is a lot of money. How is the potential buyout financed by LPEA? What I would imagine substantial cost in additional in-house distribution. That, who wants to take that one?
Sounds financial. That sounds like me. So that $86 million that was referenced is for a full buyout. That's a full exit from Tri-State. And that is one of the three options that our board asked us to consider, but it's only one. That said, if we were to pursue that, and we had to pay that substantial amount of money, obviously we'd have to borrow it. But in all of the models that we have put together, the savings that would accrue to the members over the period of our contracts with Tri-State going up to 2050 will be far, far more than that 100 or so million dollars. 86 million, wasn't it? So that's one part of it. But the other part I'd ask you to consider is this is only one option. If we were to pursue a partial departure where we would only be sourcing some of our power outside of Tri-State, that number is so much lower, you know, less than a quarter of that amount. And also there would also be significant savings far in excess of anything we paid out. As a finance guy, I take, you know, the environmental aspects are important, the political aspects are important, local control is important, but that's not my role. My role is this good for our pocketbook? And if it wasn't, then I wouldn't sign off on it.
Great, thank you, Carl. Anything to add by anybody?
I would just add one more thing in that, you know, we are looking at different options. So I know that the buyout gets a lot of press, the full buyout, because that's the issue that's in the courts. But, you know, we are working almost just more as hard, if that's even the right grammar, on a partial contract. So in fact, we'll probably have conversations with Tri-State once a week to see, can there be another option? And the board was very helpful in passing a resolution last fall that required staff to look at 3 options as Dan laid out. And so I just want to make sure people know that we're only going to look at things that actually save the members money. We would not be doing this if we raised rates. That is actually in the carbon goal that the board set forward to us as well. So that's a requirement and a stipulation that we have. So when we're looking at any of these options, we are looking for the greatest benefit to the member, which is lowering our power cost, period. We're not at all interested in raising those. So just wanted to make sure that folks understand that because there's a number of different options that will help us get there. And it doesn't have to be the full buyout. There's other options we're examining.
Great, thank you for that, Jessica. Do we have any more member owner questions? I have a comment by Ms. Tricia Frank. It's not a question, but a comment. I am fairly new to the member owner LPEA area. Welcome, Ms. Frank. And I really appreciate you hosting this board meeting via Zoom so that we can observe and participate. I am learning a tremendous amount. And I would just like to say that this is one of the things we are looking to do at more in the future. And so if you do appreciate these things, we welcome any comments or questions or observations or topics you might like us to cover. So that is definitely something that we are talking about being able to do more of in the future. So thank you for that, Ms. Frank. I appreciate it. Mr. Crowdmaker.
There was a comment first, Holly, there was a comment a minute ago we might have missed from Heidi Martinez up there, commenting on how good LPEA is at keeping the lights on and how few outages there are. The comment kind of disappeared, but she made a really positive comment, and that's credit to the great staff at LPEA. And by any metric that you look at compared to co-ops around the country, LPEA is fantastic at uptime, short outages, quick response to any issues. So appreciate people hearing that, and we on the board get to see great action from our staff all the time and continue to get better at it. So wanted to thank Heidi Martinez for that comment.
Yeah, our staff makes us look good.
Yes, keep us all there.
All right, Mr. Powdermaker asks, can we gain a substantial amount of the gains we desire through a partial buyout?
Can I try this?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct me. Okay. So there are monetary gains. So we're talking about saving $1 million in the first year if we can go with the amount that we think that we can absorb into our system. And that's just an incredible amount, pretty fast. And we have different ways about going that. Plus, we have the benefit of some of that power being local and under local control. And for me, the most important piece is we have a diversification of our power supply. So right now, Tri-State itself has a diversification. They have coal, they have some wind, they have some solar. But I would also like us to not be dependent upon just one company for our power supply. I'd like us to be mutually dependent on some broader areas, whether that's ourselves or anything that we want to develop, or more likely if we want to buy it from some other companies. So I think there's a substantial amount of gains, both monetarily and via local control and via diversification. How would I do on that one, Holly?
You did fabulous. Thank you, Kirsten. I appreciate it. All right, checking for some more questions or comments. Calling all member owners, do you have any other questions or comments for us this evening on power supply or general questions?
Mark has his hand up.
Fabulous. Go ahead, Mr. Garcia.
All right, sorry for keeping you beyond 8 o'clock here or close to, but a follow-up on the broadband discussion. I appreciate the feedback on that. I guess one thing that is troublesome for me, both as a former director and as a member, is the tri-state relationship. I know it's a subsidiary of LPEA and in its own realm, providing broadband services to our communities. But I guess I struggle with how a member organization such as LPA with a subsidiary cannot expand broadband services into our region without the Fast Tracks board and entity itself leading that charge. So I just kind of put that out there, food for thought. As I said, I struggled with that as a director, and in these trying times, I mean, this is a perfect example of you reaching out to us through the Zoom platform and the dependency on internet. Our communities are struggling with this, and it'd be nice to see our member-owned co-op being able to lead the charge with broadband into our communities. And Fast Tracks is there essentially in a business model, but not a membership-friendly model. So I'd like to put that out there for food for thought. And I was meaning to meet with CEO Matlock earlier before COVID hit and kind of discuss that, but we were unable to meet. But just something to think about, and would like to further this discussion somehow, some way. Thank you.
Super, thanks. And Mark, one of the questions certainly that we are answering is, what role does Fast Track play in this, and what is the formal relationship between LPEA and Fast Track, and clarifying that also. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Garcia, for that comment. Miss Julie Davidson said, thank you so much for your work, and thank you for being a member owner, Miss Davidson. We appreciate you. Thank you for participating tonight. All right, do we have any more questions or comments out there in member owner land? All right, it looks like we're pretty clear right now on questions. Oh, do we get one? Nope, it looks like we're pretty clear right now.
Some topics out there, rate increase, trees getting trimmed.
Do you mind if I share my screen really fast, just to show Mark and the others our broadband website and show them where the link is to comment and read the white paper? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So just to share with everyone, because this is a huge issue and we understand, you know, especially with Pagosa area, Archuleta County areas, broadband has been really a top priority. So I do want to show people this. Can at least Holly and everyone see this? Okay. So if you look at the top for everyone, it's lpa.coop/board, directors, and committees. And then on that, you can connect to LPA Broadband Committee. And it gives a little bit of information, and we still have to fill in our next meeting date and time. But there is an email right here, broadband committee comments at lpa.coop. So if you have thoughts and comments and information you'd like for us to have the committee, please click on the link and it creates an email that goes to us. In addition to that, there's this 2020 broadband white paper, and we're trying to flush that out. And we are asking people to read that who have an interest in broadband, and you could submit your comments to us at this link, broadband committee comments at lpa.coop. So please take a look at that. We're trying to gather information, and we'd love to hear from folks about their thoughts and information they have for us. And then we'll be posting the time and date for the next committee meeting. And I would encourage everyone to attend. We're trying to make sure that these are public. I think most people know that a lot of infrastructure is considered critical in regards to communication networks and energy infrastructure. And so we do have regulations by the FCC and the National Department of Energy on what we can share, but we've asked Fast Track and others to, at the next meeting at least, to provide an update on what they found in regards to bringing broadband to the home. And we've asked them to make that a public presentation. So I think it should be a very good one. So just encourage folks to look at the website, look at the white paper, and submit comments to us and attend the next meeting. And we'll make sure we get that updated. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jessica. I appreciate that. Our next question comes from Greg Farrar, and he is asking, by broadband, you are speaking of internet connectivity. Is that correct? And would you or we be competing with Verizon, CenturyLink, AT&T, etc.? Kirsten, would you like to take that one, please?
Well, thank you, Holly. There are different models out there. So DMEA set up their own internet provider, and they provide it, and then they also do the billing right to the home and that whole bit. There are a lot more models where the cooperative provides the backbone and provides the access for then the ISP, that would be the internet service provider, who would then resell it to you at your home. One of the things in our area is it's so diverse that in the cities we're kind of covered, and there's a lot of competition, and it's good because you're able to go out to some folks and be able to get lots of options. None of them are fabulous, but at least you have some options. In some of those really remote areas, nobody's wanting to pay to go that last mile and that last half a mile. And that's where we might have a role, and we might roll all the way down to the door on that. But I'm not saying that's the case. It's just there's so many models out there. We're looking at them all, and we're so diverse, we may be adopting multiple models.
Great, thank you for that, Kirsten. Mr. Garcia is grateful as well for the link to the broadband committee, Ms. Jessica. Appreciate that. All right. So, do we have any more? Ooh, we got another question. All right. Mr. Powdermaker, he is asking, he is commenting, as a 40-year member, I can offer only kudos, great admiration for the services and the people that perform them at LPEA. Wow, thank you, sir. I truly appreciate that. Anybody else, would you like? Dan. There you go.
I am so pleased that we're getting these great comments, because the staff here that's listening is going to take this back to the rest of the organization. And it really touches me to hear this from members, and I'm so glad that staff is here to hear this in person.
I
Yep,
think
thank you.
it's a credit to the whole LPEA organization to get positive things in this day and age. We all are good at complaining. We're not usually very good at telling people when things are going well. So it's wonderful to have people make those comments. And it's particularly a nice credit to the local Pagosa LPEA office and all the staff there and all the team and the people that we see out on the road, and just how they react to you and how they take care of things. So credit all around to the whole company and the local office. And thanks to the nice people out there. It's a wonderful thing this time.
Absolutely agree. Give us a smile, Garrett. Wave. There you go.
He's tired. He's been working on a lot of outages in your area.
Yeah, he's been keeping people happy all day. And
Yeah, we apologize.
Long
The
hard
weather
day.
has been pretty nasty, and we know there's going to be a big upgrade in the area soon, because you guys have an underground line that has been failing. So again, we appreciate everyone's patience with us, and we'll get that fixed as soon as possible.
Great, thank you. All right, the next question comes from Mr. Greg Farrar, and he says, what are you doing as far as expanding electricity reach to parts of our community that say they cannot get it, specifically Unit 6 of Aspen Springs? All right, who wants to take that one?
Oh,
And I'll
man.
jump, guys.
I guess I'll take that one. I'll start with that. I know a little bit of the history there. You know, LPA has a line extension policy that governs how our lines are extended throughout the service territory, and it can occur through a member extending service to their home, through a developer coming in and putting in power to the development. La Plata Electric does not just extend lines where you know, growth needs to be, or something like that. So usually it's a customer that starts those jobs. So, you know, I know when Aspen Springs Unit 6 went in, there was some misunderstanding on what the developer was or was not doing. And, you know, I don't know all the details there, but I'm pretty sure there was some history there that I don't know everything about. Maybe Garrett knows a little more, Bob knows a little more about, Kirsten, anybody over there knows a little more about what went on with that particular unit though.
I'm afraid I can't add a lot there, Dan. I'm not there. There was a lot of complexity in that development as it rolled out in the years going back to the 60s, was when that went in. So I can't add a lot. Sorry.
What I can add to that discussion, which does not relate to electricity, unfortunately, was that it is the second largest subdivision in the continental United States. I was on the board, the Metro board out there for a while. And it was plotted and recorded with the state of Colorado just prior to a law being implemented on how subdivisions can be designed and plotted. So Aspen Springs is its own unique character. I grew up out there and spent most of my life out there, so I can say that in a qualified measure. All right. Let's see. Mark Garcia makes the comment, and he has, of course, been on the board. We've already talked about that. Line extension into Unit 6 when they build the golf course. So maybe there's some history there. I'm not sure, but thank you, Mr. Garcia, for that. I have William Milner. He is asking, I recently put an 8.25 kilowatt hour solar system on my home and was disappointed to be offered $120 from LPEA for 10 years ownership of my solar energy credits. Shouldn't LPEA be encouraging solar by paying a more reasonable amount? That is beyond my wheelhouse. So who would like to take that question? Dan.
I'll answer that. So what William is referring to are renewable energy credits. They're often talked about as RECs. And it used to be a long time ago that RECs carried a large amount of value to them because people needed that additional renewable generation to meet certain requirements. Since, as you saw in those graphs that I was showing, that renewable generation has become less and less expensive to install, the incentives don't need to be there necessarily. Since it's cheaper to install, a lot of it's going in and being installed, and therefore there's essentially a glut of renewable energy credits on the market. So they're easy to come by, and therefore the value of them has decreased significantly. The going rate on them right now is $1 a megawatt hour, which is a little different than the units of kilowatts that you're installing on your roof. But we pass on to you what we receive as a credit for that generation. Now, the real value of solar does not come from the renewable energy credits. The real value comes from the actual kilowatt hours that you're producing that offset your electric bill. And that is by far and away the method by which solar is being justified by putting them on rooftops. So the renewable energy credits have had a low value for quite some time on them now.
Great, thank you, Dan, for that. All right. Let's see, member owners, do we have any more questions about power supply? Let's see, Kirsten, what was your other list? Do we have an operations question so we can bring Jerry into the fray? Or he just smiles. All right, let's see what we got. Mark Garcia says, thanks to you all. Have a great evening. Hey, Mark, before you take off, we do have a drawing for some door prizes this evening. So it looks like we don't have a whole lot of questions rolling in at this point. So shall we turn to Ms. Hillary Knox, VP of Communications, for our door prize?
Sure, I get like the easiest part of the evening. All I have to do is pick 2 names and give you a gift. So I feel very lucky. I picked 2 names at the beginning of the evening, and I'm just going to make sure that they are still on, and they both are. So we have sourced $50 gift cards from local businesses around our community. I'm going to go ahead and read the 2 names that have been selected for a $50 gift card. And we will go ahead and send you an email tomorrow, just letting you pick from a couple of options. And then doing the logistics of how we will get these gift cards to you. But I am pleased to announce that our winners tonight are Pamela Flowers and William Milner. So we'll be in
Yay.
touch with you via email tomorrow, and we'll let you know how to claim those. And thank you to everyone for attending and spending your Monday night with us.
Yes, and Heidi says congrats to you two winners. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Heidi. Appreciate the positive comments. So once again, we would like to thank you for participating in tonight's virtual town hall, for asking questions and making comments. If you have any epiphanies after this evening is over, we appreciate your questions and comments, as that helps us as a board and staff understand what is important to you, our member owners. We also welcome you to join us for our monthly board meetings if you can. They start at 9 a.m. on the third Wednesday of every month. So our next meeting will be on November the 18th. The first hour is always set aside for public comments and questions. And we, like I said, we love to hear from member owners like yourselves. Our Finance and Audit Committee, our Policy Committee, and our Broadband Committee meetings are all open to the public, and you can find the access information on our website as well. If you enjoyed and learned something from this virtual town hall, we would like to know that as well. So with this, I wish you all a great rest of your evening and have a nice evening. Good night.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.